Coming up in the morning edition, the PM speaks to regional tourism, PHA to get a new database, and yes, Independence Day is gone, but can we interest you in Spectacular? It's the day after our 46th Independence celebration. Welcome to the morning edition. I'm LaDawn Davis. Thanks for waking up with us. Our Independence Clue-In continues, so stay tuned and keep watching for those clues each day. Call out Charles Fisher on Friday at 502-3880 with the 5 clues in the correct order and win your weekend stay at Comfort Suites. Before you win your stay, let's see what weather is going to be like this weekend. Here's the Bank of the Bahamas weather report with Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean.
This weather report is sponsored by Bank of the Bahamas, the bank of solutions.
Good morning, LaDawn. That disturbance in the Gulf of Mexico, not yet a depression, but is expected to become one very soon. We're keeping our eyes on this system, but the good news for us in the Bahamas is that once it gets started, it's going to move towards the west over time, and it is anticipated that this will become a hurricane by tomorrow. So for those of you along the Gulf Coast of the United States, well, you want to keep your eyes on this one very, very closely, and whether it develops or not, it's going to be a rain-producing system over the next several days. Outside of our studios, we have partly cloudy skies, temperature 81 degrees, relative humidity 88%, calm winds, the barometric pressure 1,016.3 millibars, that's 30.02 inches, and it is steady. Temperatures around the islands this morning: Marsh Harbor 81, 80 in Grand Toll Key, also Freeport reporting 80 degrees as we take you into the Berry Islands, 83 also in Alistown, Bimini, Harbor Island 82 in Roxanne, Eleuthera, Artistan, Cat Island 82, Staniel Key 81 in Kemps Bay, St. Andrews, also Fresh Creek in Central Andrews at 81 degrees. And then we start to get some 82s in San Salvador and Rum Key as we take you into Ragged Island. More of the 82s there extending into Clarence Town, Long Island, Crooked Island, Betsy Bay, Acklands, and Matthew Town, with the Turks and Caicos Islands at 81 degrees. Your boating forecast for today in the northwest and central islands, southeast to south winds 10 to 15 knots. They will be falling light and variable at times. Wave heights 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Low tide 8:10 this morning. High tide will take place at 2:33 this afternoon. And for the southeast Bahamas, southeast winds 12 to 18 knots. The wave heights 3 to 6 feet with a moderate chop. So caution flags are up for boaters in the southeast Bahamas. And that's going to do it for your first look at weather the morning edition. Stay tuned. Your forecast for today and tonight is still ahead.
Thanks, Basil. The Bahamas First traffic report is up next with Kelsey Johnson, Lyndon Smith, and the traffic team.
The traffic report is sponsored by Bahamas First. First in insurance, today, tomorrow.
Good morning, LaDawn. Good morning, Bahamas. Right now on Collins Avenue and Fifth Avenue, there's basically no traffic. So we want to encourage all commuters early this morning that they can take full advantage of the empty road. However, do drive with caution because the traffic lights are down in this particular area. And joining me now on this morning's show is Sergeant Jerron Thompson, who will briefly remind us once again about crossing the traffic light, especially when electricity is off around this time.
Good morning to you. Good morning, Bahamas. When motorists are approaching a traffic junction intersection, where there's traffic lights and the traffic lights are out, we'd like for persons to practice 3 C's. That is concentration, courtesy, and common sense. Once you approach the junction, you can't approach the junction with a lot of speed. You have to slow down. You have to come to a complete stop. The junction will now be a 4-way stop, and then you'll be able to proceed.
Now, persons usually come straight down the middle on Collins Avenue trying to make that right turn onto Fifth Avenue. Is that illegal, or should they wait until they get to the particular sign?
That is illegal. They're guilty of 2 offenses. One, which is failing to keep on the left side of the street because they overtake a long line of traffic. Second, that is overtaking improperly at a junction. Overtaking at a junction is an absolute no-no. So you'll be guilty of 2 offenses. The failing to keep left is $150, and overtaking at the junction is $100. Persons, you should wait until you arrive at the turning lane. Once you enter the turn lane, then you'll be able to come on the right side of the street. Other than that, you're guilty of an offense of failing to keep on the left side of the street.
All right, thank you so much, Sergeant Thompson. LaDon, we just want to remind the general public that the electricity is off in the area, so we want you to drive with caution and care while approaching some of the red lights this morning. Back to you in the studio.
Top story this morning, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, Prime Minister, is the lead minister for tourism in the CARICOM quasi-cabinet. And in a video played during last week's 40th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in St. Lucia, the Prime Minister Minnis pitched the need for Caribbean citizens to broaden the region's tourism brand. He said the Caribbean must be known for its extraordinary visitor experiences and services.
If we can give birth to a generation of new entrepreneurs, we can move the Caribbean tourism to greater heights and in many new directions. One of these new directions is a greater global involvement in tourism by the people of the Caribbean. When we look at tourism in its totality, there are more employment and engagement opportunities in tourism than in almost any other economic sector. In the Bahamas, we are trained and educating a new generation of entrepreneurs to help our citizens garner greater economic benefits from tourism.
As work continues at the Princess Margaret Hospital, Minister of Health Dr. the Honorable Dwayne Sands said one can expect to see an increase in beds as well. Dr. Sands, providing an update on the bed shortage experienced a few months back, said new beds were added to a number of wards, including the critical block. However, the availability of beds is based on getting patients in and out of the hospital quickly.
The critical care block is where patients get operated. It is tied, the air conditioning system is tied to accident and emergency. And so if the operating room is shut down, you basically create a backlog that prevents patients from having any definitive care provided. And so this is an integral part of maintaining patient throughput through the hospital. And so we have to take a holistic approach to dealing with the hospital. We will simultaneously look at improving accident emergency, get the children's ward, get male surgical back on stream, get the old intensive care unit adequately outfitted in order to help to decompress patients, as well as deal definitively this year, this fiscal year, with the problem of boarders in the hospital. So all of these things have to be dealt with at the same time.
Minister of Health Dr. the Honorable Dwayne Sands says the country's healthcare facilities not only need an upgrade in terms of cosmetics, but in technology as well, he says. Dr. Sands said there are structural, fundamental challenges that can easily be resolved with the installation of an automated database system, which will move away from the manual one that is currently in place. The health minister also believes that a new collection system will help improve the level of services in all.
There has to be a way of transmitting that information in a reliable, validated way to a billing system. That doesn't exist right now. We have to create that system. We have to have persons who can accurately reflect that Dwayne Sands had a particular procedure done, that during the procedure he would have received X amount of hours of anesthesia, and that he would have used this disposable and that disposable. We are now building capacity and getting the appropriate staff that understand how this is to be done. We also want to move from cash collection throughout the hospital, because at this point we have multiple areas where cash is collected. So would I wish that this capacity could just, at the snap of a finger, be available? No. How do we make a better system from the ground up, and you build it one block at a time?
Leader of the Free National Movement, Prime Minister the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, along with members of the Free National Movement, expressing heartfelt condolences to the Member of Parliament for Carmichael and Minister of Works Desmond Bannister on the death of his mother on Independence Day. The FNM party noted that losing a mother is like losing the only person who always understood even the things you never said out loud. The statement went on to say that life will never be the same again, but it will teach you to stand strong even during the toughest storm. The Free National Movement statement indicated that the party is deeply saddened by Minister Bannister's loss and extend to him and his family the party's prayers and love. Independence Day might be gone, but the festive gear lives on Sucktacular when we return after this break, so stay close.
I watch the morning show because I'm usually up at that time, and I normally watch it for the entertainment.
Another small business is making its presence felt as the country celebrated 46 years as an independent nation. The popular Sucktacular brand came out with a new independence design that has been a hot commodity. Take a look. Like the popular Bahamian song says, I'm from the 242. It's the area code you dial when making those long-distance calls anywhere in the Bahamas. Those three popular numbers puts the country in a class of its own and is one of the designs to hit Sucktacular's Independence line. Owner Rashad Dean talked about why the design was chosen.
Well, the design basically came about actually observing from other people with their type of designs. And I was like thinking about how to pretty much put the concept of I'm from the 242 on socks. So basically what I have here today on showcase is some 242 independent socks, which I made from the vinyl heat sublimation machines.
Dean says the socks, which cost $18 a pair, are creating quite a buzz among customers as we celebrate the accomplishments of our country for nearly 50 years.
I have two graphic design artists, by the way. That's Urban Design Custom, and that's Paradise Promotional. That's a local Bahamian business, and basically we pretty much partnership together with doing I do designs and they do pretty much the printing of it.
While Dean does not have a store location, he is about 60% stocked out of supplies and says purchases can be made upon request.
You can actually send a request on what type of design you want, and we'll pretty much just work on it. We'll give you an actual breakdown of the process, and then we'll just basically go from there.
You watched the cultural show at Clifford Park and then danced to the pulsating beat of the goatskin drums early Wednesday morning. So when you got home, it was time for food. Our chef, Kelsey Johnson, was in the kitchen. Here's what she is serving.
Every holiday, we run a full madhouse.
Whether it was boiled fish, chicken souse, stewed fish with grits, or a nice piece of Johnny bread, Bahamians made sure to get their fill on Independence Day. Some opted to cook up these dishes at home, while others went to places like the Shoal Bristol.
This is a traditional Bahamian restaurant. Staple, I call it our flagship. It's the stew fish, boiled fish, sheep tongue sauce, chicken sauce, and stew conch. We sell that all day, every day. And people eat it all day, every day. You can come just before closing time, you can still get stew fish and our staple dishes.
Even flour pap was the order of the day, and just because it wasn't on the menu didn't mean it couldn't be served.
For me, as a child, we used to eat a lot of flour pop. It's a breakfast dish. So we'll prepare the flour pop and add some nutmeg and some sweet milk and real down-home stuff. You must be like over 65 to appreciate that. The younger generation, they won't appreciate it.
And what will you serve it with?
You can get that with Johnny cake, or it comes as a porridge itself. So that in itself, it's quite filling, but sometimes people request a slice of Johnny cake and it's readily available.
The sweet tooth lovers weren't about to be left out this Independence holiday. The coconut cakes, candies, and popcorn from Watermore Candy Kitchen were all there to satisfy their cravings.
Watermore Candies is a family business that was started in 1928 by Mr. Ulrich Watermore. He was my great-grandfather. He first learned how to make candy from his mother, Lily, in Inagua.
Upon moving to Nassau, he's encouraged by friends and family to go off and learn the proper procedures. Upon returning from New York, he opened Mortimer Candies in 1928. We've had a few other locations, but we've been on this location, East Street Hill, since the early 1940s. Independence is one of our bigger selling times, mainly because everybody wants to put out a little sweet treat for their customers, so they tend to come in and get some.
It's okay if you did gain a few extra pounds. Independence only comes once a year. Kelsey Johnson, ZNS Network News.
Thanks a lot, Kelsey. He was there. Our post-independence guest, retired Assistant Commissioner Keith Mason, was there at Clifford Park on the first independence celebrations when the new Bahamian flag was hoisted. Mr. Mason, thank you so much for joining us here on the Morning Edition.
You're very welcome.
So, Mr. Mason, talk to us a little bit about preparations that went into the first independence celebration.
Yes, well, Sir Lathril Thompson is the first Commissioner of Police in an independent Bahamas. He had just been handed the job, and he called me about 6 weeks before independence and told me that I was selected. I was then a superintendent. I was selected to prepare, to write, and to carry out the first independence parade. And that I did. I had many, many people with me. Most of them are gone. One of the people who is still with us is Mr. Taylor, who was a sergeant at the time and who hoisted the Bahamian flag, but he was unable to come this morning. Mr. Williams, who lowered the British flag, has passed on. And many, many other men that I have had with me on that parade have passed on.
Mr. Mason, talk to us a little bit about, I guess, the first night or that night that the flag was hoisted and or raised.
That was the most exhilarating time in the Bahamas for all Bahamians and every person who was visiting this country. I've never seen a crowd that big in my life. But as you know, being the officer responsible for the parade, my attention had to be geared on doing the parade properly so that nothing went wrong. And we had a wonderful morning. One thing that bothered me a lot was that on the 9th of July, morning of the 9th of July, while preparing our last rehearsal, we had some bad news. There was a Sergeant Forbes, who was the officer responsible for aerial patrols, and he had just lifted up from the international airport and the plane crashed, killing the pilot, and he died about 15, 20 minutes after.
And what was some of the thoughts going through your mind at the time, at the first independence celebrations when the Bahamian flag was hoisted? What was your thoughts?
Well, here was a new country. Here was something that we as citizens and officers responsible for this country had to rise to the occasion. We were in an independent Bahamas now, and we had to do things on our own.
And Mr. Mason, after 46 years, what is your thoughts on, I guess, the nation at this time?
We've come a long way. We've come a long way in good things, and we've come a long way in things that are not so good. For the first time in my career, and I spent 43 and a half years as a police officer. I retired as a deputy commissioner, and for the first time I've seen a mass shooting in this country. I suspect we have to expect these things since we are maturing, and we don't only mature in good things, we mature in things that are not so good sometimes.
Mr. Mason, thank you so much for joining us here on the Morning Edition, and best of luck and happy Independence Day to you.
You're very welcome.
Fisher, what's coming up in sports?
Well, coming up in sports, we have much more on that water polo team last week in Barbados. And also we're going to check in on our under-17 girls at the FIBA Americas tournament over there in Puerto Rico. Good morning once again. Team 242 showing their true colors on Independence Day at the Central Basket Tournament in Puerto Rico. The Bahamas pounded Barbados 83-41 behind 17 points, 10 rebounds from Rima Collins, Laverne and Bristol with 10 in the classification playoffs. Now the Bahamas will take on Costa Rica this afternoon at 2:50, and 5th and 6th place will be on the line. President of the Water Polo Association of the Bahamas, Chris Illing, breaking his silence and giving a better understanding as to what happened with Team Bahamas at the CC Can Championships last week in Barbados and the misconstrued information that was put out there.
What happened over there is that we as an executive board for water polo as well as Bahamas Aquatics made the decision pretty much last minute, in a week or two before CCCAN, to take the team to Barbados to prepare the team for the upcoming Pan Am Games in Trinidad. We had several options to fly to Houston, to go to Florida, or to go to CCCAN to give the Pan Am team the possibility to train under the new rules. That was the main objective, to prepare for Pan Am this year. Unfortunately, Bahamas Air decided to cancel the Houston flight. So a $350 ticket became an $800 ticket, which made it too expensive. So we said, even we knew we didn't have the funds for CCCAN in Barbados, we decided as a preparation tournament to go there.
He also cleared up the fact that the Bahamas Aquatic Federation and the Bahamas government is not at fault. There was also some last-minute decisions by CCCAN.
Some of the teams in CCCAN pulled out last minute because they have, like every other Caribbean nation, the same problem that they have money restrictions. So we decided that we take our team to Barbados, even if we have to fly a day earlier, because we only had 3 nations tournament. So for the CCCAN organizers to reschedule the already existing schedule should have been possible. We applied for a reschedule, so we would be able only to pay Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Unfortunately, that request was denied. I don't really understand why, but that is the decision of CCCAN.
So Neto Sports giving a clearer understanding on that water polo mishap last week in Barbados, and hopefully you public will have a clearer understanding as to what happened. That's going to be a wrap on Sports Thursday. Thanks for watching.
In our final look at weather, we continue to look at this area of disturbed weather in the Gulf of Mexico. It is expected to become a depression later on today and then rapidly intensify to a tropical storm by tonight and by tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. This could be a hurricane. The good news is it will be moving towards the west and away from the Bahamas. However, those Gulf states of the United States, there will be some heavy rains and thunderstorms taking place, which could lead to flooding over the next several days. So if you're traveling to any of those Gulf states, you want to take a rain check. And today we are looking at partly cloudy conditions in the morning, the chance of a brief shower, but as we get into the afternoon, things will improve with an abundance of sunshine, high temperature getting up to 89 degrees. And tonight, we are looking at, once again, partly cloudy conditions, isolated showers in our forecast during the early part of the night, low temperature getting down to 78 degrees. And your extended weather forecast over the next 7 days, beautiful weather as we head into the weekend with lots of sunshine. Those temperatures not easing up at all. We're looking at 90s right through the period, and those nighttime temperatures hovering in the upper 70s. LaDawn?
Thanks a lot, Basil. That's a wrap for us today. Make sure to join us tomorrow when we continue our Independence Clue In. Tune in and look for the clues in each morning edition newscast up to July 26th and be the winner of a weekend stay at Comfort Suites on fabulous Paradise Island. Call out Charles Fisher tomorrow after this newscast at 502-3880 with the answers in the correct order. I'm LaDawn Davis. Have a great day.